Hi, today we're going to be doing some flower pictures and we're going to be looking at the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. She is a woman artist from America and she lived in the Southwest, and she is well known for making giant pictures of flowers. So today we're going to look a little bit at how to draw some flowers. These are common flowers in Ohio, and I have for you to print an example on how to draw a daffodil and an example of how to draw a tulip. I am going to focus on the daffodil because I happen to have a daffodil that was growing in my garden, and so I'm going to look at it and draw it and then paint it. It's really nice to have an actual flower or example of something that you're painting in front of you so that you can really see its contours. So that's going to be our focus today, is to make a contour line drawing. And the contour means the outside lines of the flower, paying attention to all those little bumps and details and recording them with your pencil or crayon or marker. The supplies you're going to need today, if you have them, are crayons. So you're going to need daffodil colors like oranges and yellows, and some greens for your stem. So you're going to need crayons. If you have watercolors, that would be great, but you could also use markers with water, or you could color with your crayons or colored pencils. An optional supply would be maybe a piece of cardboard to paint on, or a board, or if you have an old craft table. Tape your paper down today and see if you can make like a little border around the outside using your tape. You might need some help. I like to use masking tape, but you know what? Scotch tape or clear tape works too. Kind of eyeball how much you're going to need. Tear it off. And then tape your paper down so that there's just a little border around the outside. I like taping my paper down when I paint with watercolor, especially if I'm using like copy paper, because then it doesn't curl up and I can let it dry as long as it needs to. And it also gives a really pretty border around the edge, and I'll show you about that in a second. So to begin our painting today, we're going to be making a contour line drawing, an outline drawing of our daffodil. So here are the steps, and I have it broken down. And the great thing about drawing flowers or anything from nature is it's got those organic shapes. So you really can't mess it up because, you know, they're not perfect. They have bumps and curves, and so you're just kind of recording it. So to start with, I'm going to use orange so that you can see my flower, but you could use yellow or whatever color you think would be appropriate for drawing your daffodil. And so if you notice on the daffodil, let me take it out of this. Daffodils have 6 petals. 1, 2, 3, and then underneath there's 1, 2, 3 petals. And then they have this beautiful ruffled center. And then they have some pollen inside of it that are on little stems of their own. A little bit of green inside, a darker yellow around the outside ruffled center, and then those beautiful 6 ruffly petals on the outside, and they have little delicate lines. So watercolor is perfect for this because watercolor is a translucent paint. It means you can see through it. So I like to start with the center when I do my flowers. So step 1 would be to make that ruffly center of your flower. And since I'm making a Georgia O'Keeffe flower, I'm going to do one large flower in the center of my picture. So I kind of want to take my finger and decide, where do I want to put my flower? I'm going to make mine central, so in the center. And remember, because you're making your flower really big, some of your petals are going to go off your paper, and that's okay. So in the center of my paper, I'm going to start with my contour line drawing of my daffodil. And I'm going to take my eye and follow it all around the center so that I can record all of those little bumps. Sometimes this takes a little time. I'm going to push a little harder so that make sure that you can really see those lines. And I can even go over some of my lines too if I want to fix them. So after you have the center of your flower, you can draw those little pollen that are in the center, and they're kind of on little stems of their own. And then we're going to start with making our beautiful petals. And there's 6 going all around. We're going to start making 3 first. So decide how long you want your petal to be. Kind of draw it in with your finger. Make a little dot. And then bring it down on one side. And then bring it down on the other side so that you have a nice space in between for your petal. Then start again at the bottom. So we're going to make 3 petals first. This one's going to be down here ways. And then we're going to make another petal off to the side over here. There. Now we're going to sandwich in between those some more petals. So we need only 3 more petals to make 6. So I think I'm going to put my petal here, here, and here. So I'll make my dot first on the outside, bring it in, and I'm going to stop at that petal so it looks like this one is actually behind it. It's kind of an optical illusion. Now this petal is going to go off my paper. So I'm literally going to be drawing it from the tape and drawing it inward. Oops, broke my crayon. Here we go. And now I'm going to do the same out here. It's going to go off the paper a little bit. That's okay. Bring it in, tuck it behind. I'm going to stop at that flower. Stop at that petal there. And that's all there is to it. You can add in a stem, and a stem would just be 2 parallel lines. And parallel means they're exactly the same and they're right by side by side to each other. If you want to draw in some of those beautiful daffodil leaves, you can. They're very thin and then they kind of loop around and are thin. If you have some daffodils in your yard, you can take a look at those leaves, help guide you a little bit. You may only have dandelions in your lawn, and that's perfect too. Dandelions are beautiful. They have lots of little tiny petals that you could draw. And so now it's time to paint. If you have some watercolors, remember you need some clean water and a brush. You wipe your paintbrush on the side, but you want a little water in there to help your paint move. And when you're filling in your flower, because you drew in crayon, it's going to hold in all that watery color. So I might start with an orange first and go around the outside. I always want my darker lines to be around the outline. And then I'm going to take my watercolor and just blend it into the center. So going around the outside first and then bringing your watercolor in. You might need to add more water to your brush because watercolor only works with water. And then for my petals, I might want to use a little yellow, add a little water to it, give it a stir to get up some of that color. Start around the outline first of my petal, using the tippy toes of my brush, and then blending it inward. Now, as I'm blending it inward, I'm kind of making it a little bit stripy because there are some little lines on my daffodil that I want to collect, and I'm not painting in all of the surface. I'm letting some white show so it looks like the sunlight is hitting it. And then you're just going to keep going all around, painting in all of your petals like this, leaving some white areas so it looks like the sunlight is hitting it. The cool thing about watercolors is that you can mix right on your paper, and with flowers, they usually have colors that are together that play nice together. So if you want to put a little green in the center of your daffodil, you can do that. If you want to give it a little bit of orange around the areas where there's a shadow, you can do that. So it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. And then you want to choose what color background. I am using purple today because purple is actually the complementary color of yellow. when you pair yellow and purple together, they shine brighter when they're next door to each other. So I'm going to paint in my background a little bit of purple. I might even add a little bit of blue just to give it a little bit more depth of color. And it's kind of fun to mix colors that play nice together. I'm going to fill in my whole picture. I have one that's finished. Let me move this out of the way. And then when you're finished, it will look something like this. And now you can see that it's dry, my paper hasn't curled up, and then you can take off the tape. So you just kind of carefully sort of pick the tape off the corner and pull it off really slowly. And you'll see how it's made like almost like a frame around my picture. Let me move this so you can see it. I'll go a little bit slower so it doesn't rip my paper. Start over here. And there you go. I have my beautiful spring flower inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe. This would make a great gift to give to someone or hang it in your room. So you can go ahead and download these and print them off and practice drawing your own spring flowers, or go out in your yard and see what kind of flowers you have and see if you can draw them and make your painting today.